The floor for Georgia is losing in the playoff. The ceiling is winning in the playoff. It's like a 2-game season for them. I don't know.
That's a low house. That's like a 4 foot. That's like a 4 foot range. You better be crawling around that house.
What would have to happen in Georgia for them to lose 2 games in the schedule? Like let's come up with some sci-fi.
It's easy, Ari. Carson Beck stinks and Mike Pobo stinks. It's very possible. I'm just saying. Get them to 2 losses.
What 2 teams would beat them on this schedule if their quarterback was just fine?
If their quarterback was, I'm saying if he's
not going to, but like if he's worse than fine, then they have other people that will come in. They're not going to have an awful quarterback.
Kentucky can do it. Ole Miss can do it. Tennessee can do it.
In what world can Kentucky do it? I'd love to hear
in the world where Devin Leary is a baller and they can't score, and Kentucky puts up 27 points.
Have you ever watched Georgia play football before? I'm just wondering. Wondering.
If your quarterback's turning the ball over and stinks, you give some favorable. What do you think this is? Like a
cut scene from The Waterboy? Like, he's not going to turn the ball over 7 times. Like, Georgia literally sucks the life out of you. Like, Kentucky is not beating Georgia. What are you doing?
Listen,
it's not happening.
What is the floor? Kenny, am I crazy? Is there a floor where Georgia does not make the playoff? What's the point? Mr. Ari, regular season here. We want to make all the games matter. Well, then what's the point of even playing the next 12 games? They don't play any good games.
It's not my fault their schedule stinks.
I could see a floor where Georgia doesn't make the playoffs. I mean, if they lose 1 game in the regular season, which is possible, and I understand Ari's point that Georgia is dominant, but they did almost lose to Missouri last year. That was a game where they were down and had a ferocious run in the 4th quarter. But to act like Georgia's invincible against perceivably subpar opponents, I mean, we've seen that to be the case that they can't get beat. So if they lose 1 game in the regular season and then go into the SEC championship with 1 loss and lose that game against either an Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, whoever that is, with 2 losses, we've seen that be the kiss of death in the playoff committee's eyes. And Georgia's schedule is not going to do them any favors. They're not going to have really any marquee wins to stand on, which is something that hurt Alabama last year. So 1 loss in the regular season, a loss in the SEC championship, and Georgia's not in the playoffs. So I could see it. Is it likely? Not really, but I can see it for sure.
Did Kenny say 1 loss in the regular season and then losing the SEC championship game?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to push back at the notion that they could lose a game and then wouldn't get in. I think a 1-loss SEC champion is in 100% of the time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you would have to lose a game in the regular season, which they'll get a mulligan for. Because if they lose in the regular season, they're still probably going to be in Atlanta. And then once you're in Atlanta, playing in an indoor dome with those animals that are on that team, I don't know, they could play a really good team on the other end of it. They could play Bama or whatever, like they always do, and lose that game. I guess, theoretically speaking, you could just be like, well, they almost lost to Mizzou last year, so they're definitely capable of losing again. They didn't lose to Mizzou. And when's the last time Georgia was actually upset? Was it when they lost to South Carolina in 2019? Is that the last time it happened?
Yeah.
What game on this? And I'm not going to join you on the Kentucky can beat Georgia bandwagon. If that happens, that would be remarkable, and we'll talk about it when it does. But that's not something you predict. So
not necessarily predict, but theoretically possible. Yes, and I do think. Ari, you're underrating a lot of these dynamics. 2 things. One, when you're replacing as many pieces as Georgia does, there's always that level of doubt. You have a new OC. When you got the players that Georgia has, things tend to look really good, and you got good players. But I think the thing that, and our colleague Seth Emerson has talked about this a little bit this offseason, if possible, that some teams are going to be able to run on Georgia this year. They don't have the big space eater. You don't have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in the middle of the paint.
And it's very easy to lose track about how special those guys were.
Yes,
they were actually really, really, really special players.